I have owned a real estate brokerage for almost a decade, and I have been doing work specifically in housing equity for about 4 years. Before opening my brokerage, was in real estate for about 3 or 4 years. But my biggest knowledge base when it comes to real estate and how critical it is for survival, for thriving, for building wealth is actually from my grandfather, who was very fortunate to be able to purchase property early on. He was very financially savvy in that way. And he instilled in his children the importance of owning real estate. He also safeguarded them. His goal was to have property for each of his children so that they would always have a place to live, no matter what happened. And I think that messaging inspired them to go and buy their own property. For me, as his granddaughter, that was really important to witness the action behind the words. So he was giving that message, but I saw how he was able to provide for his family, for my grandmother, and for his children. I was trying to buy my first house. I was 21. I was trying to buy my first house, and I didn't have the down payment. He was willing to give me the money. I needed about $7,500, and he was willing to give me the money. I didn't end up buying that property, but I did purchase a property a few years later. And I credit my grandfather with a lot of my understanding of how important real estate is to wealth building. It doesn't necessarily make everyone wealthy. It certainly is a key to wealth in the United States, but where we are now is wealth is what we need to survive now. Wealth is the safety net that we're building so that when the inevitable happens, when there is financial hardship, we're able to get through it, right? Wealth is the undercurrent for the community to keep going. I have a lot of experience in real estate. I've worked with a lot of people in the community to help them build generational wealth, to help them build portfolios that will allow them and their families to thrive. But I think seeing that example from such a young age was foundational to being able to do that. Even though I had that experience, I would say that my experience is very different than a lot of my colleagues. I actually did not get into real estate to make money. I got into real estate because when I was trying to buy my first house, I just really wasn't happy with my representation. All of the agents that I was hiring were more interested in, someone who had a bigger budget than I had. They didn't want to take the time to really explain the mechanics of a real estate transaction to me. They didn't take the time to sift through the listings and send me, those that fulfilled my search criteria. And so I just sort of rebelliously decided to get a real estate license so that in the future, when I purchased a property, I wouldn't have to hire a real estate agent that wouldn't show up for me. And after getting my license, because I'm still who I am, I ended up helping my friends and family to understand what I now understood about the real estate industry and the way that it works. And I did the same thing in starting my brokerage. I learned a lot from working for different brokerages. And what I primarily learned was how much was missing. There weren't a lot of brokers that were pouring into their agents. And why all of that is important is that you have a lot of people in this industry who are not well equipped to understand how first of all, how important this is to people, to their lives, to their children, to being able to take care of themselves. And because of that, we have housing discrimination, we have appraisal bias, we have a lot of predatory behavior in the real estate industry. And we don't have a lot of people who are fighting against it. We have a lot of people in this country who believe that capitalism reigns supreme and that whatever our outcomes are, if we are serving the interest of making more money, they're fair. And that's not true. So I noticed very early on that I was very different from my colleagues in that way, and the different ways that it would show up and how much I pay my agents, how much I educate my clients. And it's also shown up in how I understand that the ecosystem that housing influences. And so real estate is not just buying and selling houses. It's not just fortifying people's pockets. Real estate is one of many ways that we're able to undergird our communities. It's the way that we're able to have clients who've been able to pay off their student loans because of the work that we did together, clients who've been able to start businesses because of what we've done. And when we are now in a situation where people have been forced out of the workforce, when we have rising costs, when we have unprecedented inflation, people are looking around for different sources of income and how am I going to withstand this until things get better? And real estate is one of those things. And interestingly, housing is one of the most important things. We have to make sure that people have housing to withstand what we're going through right now. We're going through a lot of uncertainty. We're going through a lot of attacks on lower income and middle income families. And housing is the most important stabilizing factor that we have. So it's critical that we invest in retention programs, that we counter the disinvestment that we see from the federal government in those programs at the local level, and that we are prioritizing community when it comes to housing and not capitalism.